Okay, studying details we often overlook in Genesis, focusing on the Nephilim. We really are coming to an end of our study. We got most of what I wanted to cover, which was the biblical record up to Genesis 6. But there's one more thing that I thought is really interesting that you might find interesting as well. And that is a study of the Jordan River, and not just the Jordan, but rivers in general. But let's start with the Jordan. I have a quote. It's very, very, very old. It's from a commentary on John, written by Origen. And that goes way, way back. Okay, you're talking way back. I mean, very close to biblical days, okay? And he says, Jordan means they're going down. Who? What is going down? That's the question. They're going down. Now, we also looked last week at the name Jared or Jared. It is etymologically akin to it, he says. And of course, Jared meant, does anybody remember? Descent or descending. Going down. Basically. So they're almost the same word, very, very close, the same root word. The question is, what are we talking about? Something in this time frame with Jared, and of course we know morality is going down because the flood's about to happen. But the River Jordan transcends that and would play a huge role in biblical history altogether. It's kind of, the Jordan River is kind of the Area 51 of the Bible. You know what Area 51 is? Roswell. The Jordan River, I think you'll find, and I'm saying that a little bit facetiously, but it's kind of, boy, there's a lot of supernatural events happening there at the Jordan. I mean, if you just think about it, you can probably name, if I gave you pencil and paper, you could probably start ticking off quite a few. Numerous supernatural events take place there on its shores, in the river itself, or on the river, or around the river. It served kind of as an ancient portal between the heavenly and the earthly realms. It's a significant location in Scripture. The first thing I want us to look at is in Genesis 13, where the Jordan is actually compared to the Garden of Eden. Now, not compared as in meant to be the same place. That's not what the writer is referring to. Genesis 13, beginning with verse 7. There was strife between the herdsmen of Abram's cattle and the herdsmen of Lot's cattle. And at the time the Canaanites and the Perizzites dwelt in the land. Okay, just to give you some context, you know the story, right? Abraham and Lot. God has blessed them. They're growing, they're booming, they're getting too big. Pretty soon they have way too much, and the idea is thrown forth, hey, we need to separate. So they go up on the top of the mountain, and Abram lets Lot look out, and he sees the plain and the plains of the Jordan, and he compares that to the Garden of Eden, the Garden of God. It's lush, it's fertile. It was beautiful, and that's the area that he wanted. I think it's verse 10. Lot lifted up his eyes and saw that the Jordan Valley was well watered everywhere, like the garden of the Lord. Well, I wouldn't put a lot of emphasis on this comparison if it were just standing alone, right? But when you take all the passages that we're going to look at, and there are more than what we're going to look at, and you add them all together, it starts to pile up. In Abraham's day, the plain adjacent to the Jordan River is compared to the Garden of Eden. when Abraham's grandson Jacob is in Bethel. Bethel just due west of the Jordan River, very close. He's laying down one night. He has a stone for a pillow. He falls into a sleep. He has a dream. And what does he see in his dream? A ladder. What's on the ladder? Angels descending, ascending this ladder, and standing above that all is God. Very close to the Jordan River. Okay, again, you wouldn't think too much of it. You just think, okay, 2 stories. They're all in this area. So maybe it's just coincidence. I mean, there are certainly other events that happen not so close to the river. But let's look at some more examples. You keep fast forwarding. You go to the book of Joshua. Israel is about to enter the promised land. God gives detailed instructions to Joshua for the crossing of the Jordan. We're in Joshua chapter 3. Remember, they're going to cross and they're going to enter the promised land. And this one you really need to stop and think for a moment, because this is a bit symbolic. What are we representing? What's so symbolic about this event?
Salvation.
Salvation. It's going into the promised land. It's sort of a shadow of us going into our promised land. It's the Israelites going into their promised land. But to get there, they have to cross, guess which river? The Jordan. Beginning with verse 9. Joshua 3, beginning with verse 9. And Joshua said to the people of Israel, "Come hither and hear the words of the Lord your God." And Joshua said, "Hereby you shall know that the living God is among you, and that he will without fail drive out from before you the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Hivites, the Perizzites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, the Jebusites, and the mosquito bites," I always add. But watch verse 11. "Behold, the ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth is to pass over before you into the Jordan." Okay, it's an important part of the story. Before you cross the river, what are you going to do? Carry the ark out there first. And when it gets down into the middle, it's going to stop. It's signifying the presence of God, right? And all the people are going to cross on dry land. When they've all crossed, now they can go on to the other side with the ark. You suppose that's symbolic of anything?
Other than the Red Sea.
Pardon?
I said, other than the Red Sea.
Well, it's reminiscent of the Red Sea, absolutely.
Well, I don't want to get ahead of anything, but to me, it's where you need God.
It's God's presence.
Jordan was used, and you may going to be going there, I don't want to come.
It's okay.
Jesus was baptized in the Jordan. John was baptized in the Jordan. Sin was being eradicated.
Yes.
And so therefore, God was there in Jordan.
In the Jordan, yes.
And the dove came to Jesus.
Yes.
At the Jordan.
We are going to go there shortly. But your mind starts thinking, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, all these things take place at this river. If you go on down and keep reading, you read about what they're supposed to do, and they're supposed to stack up some stones in 2 places. Where are the 2 places they stack up the stones?
One is in the bed.
One is in the middle, the dry bed, and the waters will cover it back over, and you're supposed to build kind of a memorial there. And then one, where's the other one? It's on the bank, and it's so you can see it to remind you of this event. Verse 17 says, "And while all Israel were passing over on dry ground, the priests who bore the ark of the covenant of the Lord stood on dry ground in the midst of the Jordan, until all the nation finished passing over the Jordan." God here is called the Lord of the earth. He supernaturally parts the Jordan River. He creates a divine pathway for the Levite priests who are bearing the ark to lead the nation across on dry land into the promised land. So you've got 12 stones on the shore representing God's blessing, His salvation to those who believe. You have the other command to stack up 12 stones and put them on the floor of the Jordan River. He wanted them to remember this place. It was special. He wanted them to remember how special it was. Well, you keep going. Fast forward in time. We're going to 1 Kings now. We're at the Jordan River again. God has instructed Elijah, who is a fugitive at the moment, running for his life. He's a prophet, you know that. But he says, I want you to go out by the river and I want you to rest. And he sent ravens, carnivorous birds, to supernaturally deliver him bread and meat. We're in 1 Kings 17, beginning with verse 1. Now Elijah the Tishbite of Tishbe in Gilead said to Ahab, As the Lord, the God of Israel, lives, before whom I stand, there shall be neither dew nor rain these years, except by my word. And the word of the Lord came to him. Depart from here and turn eastward, and hide yourself by the brook Cherith, or Harit. It is east of the Jordan. Okay, now if you look at it, it's very close. So we're in the exact same area, just on the other shore now. He says, drink from the brook, the ravens will feed you. So we did. I guess by this point, I'm asking your thoughts. Why don't you think about, is it by accident God tells him to go to the River Jordan?
Nothing is by accident. Everything has meaning.
Yeah, nothing is by accident with God. It's on purpose. Question is, what's the purpose? Is it just close? Are there not other rivers? Are there not other wells? Is there not other water source? Or is this a special place? Go over another book, 2 Kings. Elijah again is at the Jordan. Oh, and this time it's something special. This time, a portal into heaven does open up. You know the story? Yes, 2 Kings chapter 2, beginning with verse 5. The chariot of fire. The sons of the prophets who were at Jericho drew near to Elisha and said to him, Do you know that today the Lord will take away your master from over you? And he said, Yes, I know it. Hold your peace. And Elijah said to him, Tarry here, I pray you, for the Lord has sent me to the Jordan. Again, put a little question mark there in your Bible and ask. Accident? On purpose? And if it's on purpose, what's the purpose? And he said, As the Lord lives, and as you yourself live, I will not leave you. So the two of them went on. 50 men of the sons of the prophets also went, and stood at some distance from them. And as they were both standing, where? By the Jordan. Elijah took his mantle, rolled it up, struck the water, and the water was parted to the one side and to the other, till the two of them could go over on dry ground. Did you remember that they crossed the river on dry ground as well? And when they had crossed, and it's not the only time, it's about to happen again. And when they had crossed, Elijah said to Elisha, Ask what I shall do for you before I am taken from you. And Elisha said, I pray you, let me inherit a double share of your spirit. And he said, You have asked a hard thing. Yet if you see me as I am being taken from you, it shall so be for you. But if you do not see me, it shall not be so. Watch this, verse 11. And as they still went on and talked, behold, a chariot of fire and horses of fire separated the two of them, and Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven. And where was he? He was right by the Jordan. Again, if you're just looking at all of these separately, it's not that big a deal. You don't think of anything. But as you begin to look for patterns, as you begin to look for things being put together in different parts of the Bible, you have to start asking some questions. Why the Jordan? Well, I don't know that I have an answer. I just know that it's a special place. It's a place that God likes, apparently. By divine power, Elijah and Elisha crosses over the Jordan on dry ground. The waters once again supernaturally part. They pass through. 2 Kings 2 verse 13. He takes up the mantle of Elijah that had fallen from him, and he went back and stood on the bank of the Jordan. Okay, he's there again. And he took the mantle of Elijah that had fallen from him, struck the water, and said, "Where is the Lord, the God of Elijah?" And when he had struck the water was parted to the one side and the other, and Elisha went over. Again, the Jordan. And you don't have to go too far until you come to the Jordan again with another story that you know very well, 2 Kings 5. A gentleman by the name of Naaman has leprosy. He's the captain of the Syrian army. He's seeking a cure. He has a servant that is a Hebrew servant. He advises him to contact Elisha. Elisha can heal you. Supernaturally is the intent. And the prophet told Naaman to wash himself in the Jordan River 7 times and you'll be cured. Well, he revolted. Why that dirty river? It's bizarre instructions. Dip 7 times in the Jordan? Aren't there other rivers, cleaner rivers, better rivers? Well, that tells you the reputation that the river has around. People don't really care for it unless you're Jewish.
There's a lesson in the dirtiness of the river also.
That's right. It wasn't the water itself. It was the power of God. Verse 14, 2 Kings 5, beginning with verse 14. He went down and he dipped himself 7 times in the Jordan, according to the word of the man of God. And his flesh was restored like the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. But verse 15 is also important. Then he returned to the man of God, he and all his company. And he came and stood before him and said, "Behold, I know that there is no God in all the earth but in Israel. So accept now a present from your servant." He's now a believer. But he's told to go to the Jordan. Dip 7 times. Okay, so you start putting all of these stories together. And what is your personal opinion, your conclusion? You don't have to agree with me. But what are you thinking now about the Jordan? Is it just coincidence? Is it just happenstance? Is it the only river they have to go to, and God wanted to do all these powerful things at a river? Okay, I'll take that. But I'm going to add to it, rivers are important to God. Why? I don't know exactly. I know. I just have lots of unanswered questions.
Jordan, to me, would be synonymous with sin and dirt, filth, and everything that is that's involved in mankind.
Okay?
And I've always connected that with the fact that goes into the Dead Sea. And all of that is polluted, goes to the Dead Sea, and it becomes salted and of no value. Nothing grows, and there's no value. But in the process, God uses that to cleanse. So I may be, I'm like you already, draw your own conclusions. But I see a lot of that.
Yeah, the Jordan does represent dirt, mud, filth, saltiness when it gets to the sea.
And it comes into.
And God can use anything. God's power is what's important, is one lesson we're looking at. But I want you to think about just rivers in general. It isn't just the Jordan. I mean, Naaman is not only healed of leprosy, he comes up out of the Jordan a true believer in God. And in addition to being sites for miracles, rivers were prime locations for, shall we say, angelic manifestations, other supernatural events. Ezekiel chapter 1. Ezekiel chapter 1. The river Shabar, or Chabar, in the 30th year, in the 4th month, and the 5th day of the month, as I was among the exiles by the river Chabar. The heavens were opened, and I saw visions of God. So many times we look at this, something like this, and we focus so much on the vision itself, we don't focus on the location. He's at a river to see these visions. The prophet literally witnesses a portal to heaven and 4 angelic beings descend to the earth at the river Chabar. Go to chapter 3, Ezekiel 3, beginning with verse 15. And I came to the exiles at Tel Abib, who dwelt by the river Chabar. And I sat there, overwhelmed among them 7 days. And at the end of 7 days, the word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, I've made you a watchman for the house of Israel. Whenever you hear a word from my mouth, you shall give them warning from me. He's told, you're going to be my prophet. Where? At a house beside the river Chabar. Now, he has also been told to lie on his side for 430 days. It's a long time to lay down on your side, isn't it? He is sitting in his home at the river Chabar, and he encounters the divine realm once again. Flip over to chapter 8, beginning with verse 1. In the 6th year, in the 6th month, on the 5th day of the month, as I sat in my house, with the elders of Judah sitting before me, the hand of the Lord God fell there upon me. And then I beheld, and lo, a form that had the appearance of a man. Below what appeared to be his loins was fire, and above his loins it was like the appearance of brightness, like gleaming bronze. He put forth the form of a hand, and took me by a lock of my head, and the Spirit lifted me up between earth and heaven, and brought me in visions of God to Jerusalem, to the entrance of the gateway of the inner court that faces north, where was the seat of the image of jealousy, which provokes to jealousy. And behold, the glory of the God of Israel was there, like the vision that I saw in the plain. He's sitting in his house, and his house is there by the river. And he sees this manifestation of an angelic being that looks like a man, but is on fire, and he grabs him by the hair of the head, takes him into a vision. Ezekiel has more angelic revelations and heavenly realm experiences than any other prophet in the Bible, at least on record. Ezekiel has more than any other. And not surprising, the word river is associated with most of them. And the word river itself occurs more times in his account than in any other book of the Bible. Let's go to another one. Daniel. This time we're at the Tigris. Daniel chapter 10. Daniel received some of the most startling prophecies from angels, and he's situated near a river. Could you have guessed? The Tigris or Tigris. In the third year, Daniel 10, beginning with verse 1, in the third year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a word was revealed to Daniel, who was named Belteshazzar, and the word was true, and it was a great conflict, and he understood the word and had understanding of the vision. In those days, I, Daniel, was mourning for 3 weeks. I ate no delicacies, no meat or wine entered my mouth, nor did I anoint myself at all for the full 3 weeks. On the 24th day of the first month, as I was standing on the bank of the great river. Okay, the great river, by name there, is Hiddekel, which is another name for the eastern branch of the Tigris. In Daniel's day, the Tigris River separated the Babylonians and the Medes, the Medo-Persians. He is there on the banks of the river, and he sees some incredible visions, messages delivered by angels. In Daniel 12, he encounters another pair of angels. They appear, one on each side of the Tigris, and then one appears apparently either walking on the water or floating on the water. Beginning with verse 5, Daniel 12, beginning with verse 5, Then I, Daniel, looked, and behold, 2 others stood, one on this bank of the stream, and one on that bank of the stream. And I said to the man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the stream, okay, how many do you have now? There's one on each side and one above the waters. Now this one above the waters is special. He's clothed in linen specifically. And he asks, How long shall it be till the end of these wonders? And the man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the stream, raised his right hand and his left hand toward heaven. And I heard him swear by him who lives forever that it would be for a time, 2 times, and half a time, and that when the shattering of the power of the holy people comes to an end, all these things would be accomplished. Okay, we're not getting into the time factor here. That's for another study. I just want to point out we're by the river. We have an angel on each side and one floating above. Now the one floating above, the scholars tell us, is a Christophany. You know what a Christophany is? Jesus in the Old Testament. Can you think of at least one other time that would happen? It's also associated with Daniel, only his 3 friends in the furnace. There's one who looks like a son of man. There was a 4th. Okay, so we've got the Jordan River, we've been the River Chabar, the Tigris, and what's the other great river? Euphrates. At the Euphrates, 4 angels were imprisoned. Let's fast forward to Revelation. Revelation chapter 9. Revelation 9, beginning with verse 13. Then the 6th angel blew his trumpet, and I heard a voice from the 4 horns of the golden altar before God, saying to the 6th angel who had the trumpet, Release the 4 angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates. The angels were released. Why at the river? Why were they imprisoned at the river? I don't know. I just know that there is some association with rivers and God and angelic beings and visions. Also in Revelation, the last chapter of the Bible describes the New Jerusalem. And in that description is a throne of God and Jesus. There are two thrones, and underneath them is a river flowing. Revelation 22:1. And he showed me the river of the water of life, bright as crystal, flowing from the throne of God and of the Lamb. It's actually coming from the thrones. Now, what do you think about rivers and God? And this kind of portal, if you will, that opens up. Well, if I understand this vision correctly, there is a river that opens up out of the throne of God.
A lot of times the river could make a reference to the Holy Spirit.
Sometimes it is. It's exactly right. Time and again, rivers are the site of angelic manifestations, divine manifestations, but the preeminent place seems to be the Jordan. That's the one where the great majority take place. Now let's go to the most important one. Let's go back now, as referenced earlier, Jesus' baptism. We're in Matthew 3. Matthew 3, beginning with verse 13. Matthew 3, beginning with verse 13. Then Jesus came from Galilee to the Jordan. He had choices. He chose this one, the Jordan. He went out to John to be baptized by him. John would have prevented him, saying, I need to be baptized, but you, and do you come to me? But Jesus answered him, Let it be so now, for thus it is fitting for us to fulfill all righteousness. Then he consented. And when Jesus was baptized, he went up immediately from the water, and behold, the heavens were opened, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and alighting on him, and a voice from heaven saying, This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. I don't think there's any mistake at all. There is certainly a portal that opens up in this one, right? From the spiritual realm to the earthly realm. Is it by accident that it's at the Jordan? I'm really not trying to convince you of any wild ideas. I'm just trying to get you to think about patterns in the Bible. Things that are mentioned over and over and over and over and over again typically have some kind of meaning. God is trying to tell us something. The only thing I know for sure, he's saying this is a special place. The Jordan River. And other rivers. Perhaps because there is a river that contains the water of life that flows from God's throne that offers salvation. Maybe it's symbolic simply of that. Maybe a connection with baptism. You know, you can take it as far as you want. Purifying, yeah, washing, purifying. Like I said, I really only wanted to cover the text, and up to the text of the Nephilim, there's not a lot said in the text after this. Now you can get books that go on and write lots of interesting things. I just wanted to stick with the text. The next thing I want to study, if not the very next thing, it'll be very soon. I want to study with you the New Testament geographically. Now you think, oh boy, that sounds like nap time. But I promise you it is not. You will see the stories in a whole different light. Just like this, studying this and looking at small details that open your eyes, studying the geography and the culture of the day is incredibly eye-opening. You get to see just how far away Jerusalem and Galilee are, for example. Jesus was of Galilee. He spent most of his time. Rarely came down to Jerusalem. The Jericho Road, the Jordan River. You'll know them by heart when we get done. We'll look at maps. We'll get to know them. We'll study the parables. Make so much more sense when you know geographically what he was talking about. Like the story of the prodigal son in the foreign country. Do you, like me, have in mind that the foreign country was like a ship ride way off across the world, halfway across the world? They could probably see it across the river. And he was probably pointing. It's little things like that they're eye-opening. If you just pay attention to the details and get to know a little bit of the geography and the culture of the day. Of course, we would start with Christmas in June or July because that's where the text starts. But again, learning the stable was probably not a stable. No inn. Oh, the reason's going to blow your mind. But there was no room in the inn.
What's the condition of the rivers now?
Condition of the river now? I've not been there personally. I've seen pictures and I've heard firsthand accounts, and I'm told it's beautiful. It's shallow, the Jordan, in most places very shallow, but beautiful.
The Jordan is used so much for irrigation that it's actually very, very shallow.
Shallow and even dry in some. Kind of like if you've ever been down to the Rio Grande through Texas and all down through there, you can walk across. There's no swimming.
Well, what about the other?
The Tigris, the Euphrates, the Chabar, I don't know much about them other than they're great rivers, the Tigris and Euphrates, of course.
That's where the garden.
The Eden had one border on each.
And that's another thing about rivers. When you start talking about it, it's landmarks.
Yes.
It gives indication of where things really develop and happen. So you see a lot of times in the scriptures when it uses that information, your mind is able to pinpoint in what the geographics are,
Yeah.
where they are.
Yeah. I know you can take a cruise up and down the Euphrates, right? I don't know about the others.